I'm 65 now, and I no longer feel the need to be around everyone. Years ago, my calendar was always full. If someone needed help, I was there. If family gathered, I never missed it. If a friend called, I answered without hesitation. I believed that being available for everyone was simply the right way to live. But somewhere along the way, something quietly changed. It wasn't because I became angry with people. It wasn't because I stopped caring. And it certainly wasn't because I wanted to spend my life alone. The truth is much simpler than that. As I grew older, I began to realize that peace is fragile. It can be disturbed by constant obligations, one-sided relationships, and conversations that leave you feeling more exhausted than fulfilled. At 65, I finally understood that protecting my peace is just as important as protecting my health. These days, I choose my time more carefully. I choose my company more carefully. And surprisingly, that choice has made me happier than I ever expected. In this video, I'd like to share why that happened. We'll talk about why time begins to feel more valuable as we age, why some relationships naturally fade while others become priceless, and why spending time alone isn't always loneliness. It can become one of life's greatest gifts. If you've ever found yourself craving a quieter, simpler life, or you've wondered whether it's normal to pull back from certain people as you grow older, I think you'll find something meaningful here. Together, let's explore why sometimes the greatest act of self-care isn't adding more people to your life. It's learning which ones no longer need to be there. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for one small favor. If these conversations bring you comfort, encouragement, or simply a quiet moment to reflect, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. It allows us to continue creating videos like this and to build a community where growing older is met with wisdom, dignity, and hope. Thank you for being here, and now, let's begin. Number 1. Time feels more precious. When I was in my 20s or 30s, I rarely thought about time. Tomorrow always seemed guaranteed, and next year felt comfortably distant. If someone invited me somewhere I didn't really want to go, I often said yes anyway. If a conversation dragged on for hours without meaning, I stayed out of politeness. If people expected favors that left me exhausted, I convinced myself it was simply part of being a good person. Back then, I believed time would always be waiting for me. But after turning 65, something shifted almost without my noticing. It wasn't that I suddenly became afraid of getting older. It was that I began to understand something I had ignored for decades. Every ordinary day is far more valuable than I once believed. A quiet morning with a cup of coffee became more meaningful than a busy afternoon, spent trying to satisfy everyone's expectations. A peaceful walk through the neighborhood offered more joy than attending social events, simply because I felt obligated. Even sitting by the window, watching the rain fall, started to feel like time well spent instead of time wasted. Age has a remarkable way of teaching priorities. You stop counting how many things you can fit into a day and start asking whether those things deserve a place in your life at all. These days, before I commit to anything, I silently ask myself two simple questions. Is this worth my time? Is this person worthy of my energy? Sometimes the answer is yes. A heartfelt conversation with an old friend. Dinner with family who genuinely enjoy one another's company. Helping someone who would gladly do the same for me. But sometimes the answer is no. Endless complaints that never lead to change. Relationships built entirely on obligation. Invitations accepted only because I worry about disappointing someone else. Learning to say no wasn't easy. For many years, I confused kindness with constant availability. I thought protecting other people's feelings mattered more than protecting my own peace. Now I understand they are not the same. Every hour I spend on something that drains me is an hour I cannot spend doing something that restores me. And at this stage of life, restoration matters. I've come to believe that time is unlike money. Money can sometimes be earned back after it's lost. Time never can. Once a day has passed, it quietly becomes part of your history, never to return. That realization hasn't made me fearful. It has made me intentional. Instead of trying to fill my calendar, I try to fill my days with moments that leave me feeling grateful when I go to bed at night. because after 65, the greatest luxury isn't having more things. It's having the wisdom to spend your time only on what truly deserves it. Number 2, relationships change. When I was younger, I believed that losing contact with someone meant I had failed. I tried to keep every friendship alive, even when the connection had become strained or one-sided. I remembered birthdays, returned every call, attended gatherings I didn't enjoy, and continued conversations that had stopped feeling genuine years earlier. Sometimes I stayed because of history, sometimes because of guilt, and sometimes because I was afraid that letting go would make me seem cold or ungrateful. But sharing a past with someone does not always mean you still belong in each other's present. I began to understand this through a woman named Helen, whom I had known for many years. Whenever she called, she spoke almost entirely about her own problems. I listened, encouraged her, and tried to help. Yet when I mentioned something difficult in my own life, she quickly changed the subject or said she had to go. For a long time, I made excuses for her. I told myself she was stressed, lonely, or simply unaware of what she was doing. But after nearly every conversation, I felt tired rather than connected. Around the same time, I became closer to another friend, Margaret. We didn't speak every day, and we rarely made elaborate plans. Yet whenever we met, I felt comfortable. She listened without rushing to judge. We could laugh, sit quietly, or disagree without turning the moment into a conflict. That contrast taught me something important. Some people leave you feeling steadier after you spend time with them. Others leave you carrying emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. This doesn't mean every friendship must be perfect. Real relationships include misunderstandings, difficult conversations, and moments when one person needs more support than the other. But over time, there should still be care in both directions. You should not always be the one calling, forgiving, explaining, or making the effort. These days, I pay attention to how a relationship feels after the conversation ends. Do I feel respected? Can I be myself without performing? Does this person care about my life, or only about what I can provide? Most importantly, does the relationship bring warmth into my days, or does it survive only because neither of us has had the courage to release it? Letting go doesn't always require an argument or a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes it simply means calling less often, declining invitations that feel like obligations, and allowing distance to develop naturally. There is no need to erase the good memories. A relationship can have been meaningful once and still no longer be healthy today. We can appreciate what someone gave us without forcing them to remain part of our future. My circle is smaller now, but it feels more honest. The people who remain are not here because of habit, guilt, or convenience. They are here because there is mutual kindness, trust, and peace. And I've learned that 5 sincere relationships can offer far more comfort than 50 connections that leave you feeling unseen. Number 3, trust becomes more complex. When I was younger, trust came naturally to me. If someone spoke kindly, I assumed they had good intentions. If they made a promise, I believed they would keep it. I rarely questioned what people wanted from me because I had not yet learned how easily words and actions can move in different directions. Over the years, that innocence changed. There were people who asked for help but disappeared when I needed them. Others shared private things I had told them in confidence. A few made promises they had no intention of keeping. None of those experiences destroyed me, but each one left behind a lesson. By the time you reach your 60s, trust is no longer something you hand over, simply because someone seems friendly. You begin to understand that charm is not the same as character, and a warm first impression does not always reveal who a person truly is. I learned this through a man named Daniel, whom I met after retirement. He was outgoing, generous with compliments, and always eager to make plans. Within a few weeks, he spoke as though we had known each other for years. At first, I enjoyed his company, but I slowly noticed a pattern. He often criticized other friends behind their backs, shared details that were not his to repeat, and changed his stories depending on who was listening. Nothing dramatic happened. There was no great betrayal. I simply realized that if he spoke so freely about everyone else, one day he would probably speak the same way about me. Years earlier, I might have ignored that discomfort because I wanted to be liked. But age had taught me to pay attention to what my instincts were trying to say. That may be one of the quiet gifts of growing older. You begin to trust yourself. You stop dismissing the uneasy feeling that appears when someone's behavior does not match their words. You notice when apologies are repeated, but actions never change. You understand that a person who respects you once may be polite, but a person who respects you consistently is trustworthy. So now I let trust develop slowly. I do not share every personal detail in the first few conversations. I do not make myself endlessly available just because someone asks. I allow people to show me who they are through time, not through promises. Boundaries help with this. They are not walls meant to keep everyone out. They are simply clear limits that protect what matters. A boundary might mean saying, "I'm not comfortable discussing that." It might mean refusing a favor that feels unreasonable. It might mean stepping back when someone repeatedly ignores your needs. The way people respond to a boundary tells you a great deal about them. Sincere people may not always agree, but they will usually respect it. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries may become upset the moment you create one. That reaction is information. Trust should not be based on one kind gesture, one emotional conversation, or one impressive promise. It should be built from consistency. Does the person do what they say? Do they treat you with respect when no one else is watching? Can they admit when they are wrong? Do you feel safe being honest with them? These questions matter more to me now than popularity or appearances. Being cautious does not mean becoming suspicious of everyone. It means allowing trust to grow at a pace that feels safe. Some people will prove themselves worthy, and when they do, the relationship can become deeply meaningful. But trust no longer needs to be given all at once. I have learned to offer it in small portions, watch how it is handled, and only then give more, because protecting your trust is not about closing your heart. It is about protecting yourself from having to rebuild it again and again. Number 4, the world has changed. Sometimes I look around and feel as though the world I grew up in has quietly disappeared. When I was younger, people did not need an appointment to visit one another. A neighbor might knock on the door just to share a piece of news, return a borrowed dish, or sit at the kitchen table for a while. Children played outside until someone called them home, and families often spent evenings in the same room, talking about the day. Life was not perfect back then. People still had worries, disagreements, and responsibilities. But there seemed to be more room for one another. Today, nearly everyone appears to be rushing. Children are balancing work, bills, and families of their own. Grandchildren may live far away or spend much of their free time looking at a screen. Even friends who once had hours to talk now answer messages between appointments, errands, and other obligations. Technology was supposed to make connection easier, and in many ways, it has. We can send a message across the world in seconds. We can see photographs from relatives we rarely visit and speak face-to-face with someone who lives hundreds of miles away. Yet something still feels missing. A short message is not always the same as hearing someone's voice. Seeing a photograph is not the same as sharing a meal. And having hundreds of online contacts does not necessarily mean there is someone who will sit beside you when you are having a difficult day. I noticed this one afternoon when I visited my son. Everyone was in the living room, but no one was really together. One person was answering work emails. Another was watching a video. Someone else was scrolling through messages. The house was full, yet the room felt strangely quiet. I did not blame them. This is simply how modern life has trained us to live. Always reachable, always informed, and rarely fully present. But I realized I did not want that pace to control the rest of my life. So I began making small changes. I stopped feeling pressured to answer every message immediately. I turned off the television during meals. When a friend visited, I placed my phone in another room. Instead of sending a quick greeting, I sometimes called and allowed the conversation to unfold without watching the clock. I also started choosing activities that made life feel slower and more real. I spent mornings tending a few plants near the window. I walked through the neighborhood without headphones. I visited the local market and spoke to the people behind the counters instead of rushing through a self-checkout lane. These may seem like small things, but they returned something modern life had slowly taken from me. Attention. When you truly listen to someone, look them in the eyes, and allow silence without reaching for a device, you remind them that they matter. You also remind yourself that life is happening in front of you. Not only on a screen, the world will continue to change. We cannot force it to move backward, and we do not need to reject every new convenience, but we can decide how much of its noise enters our lives. We can protect quiet mornings. We can make room for unhurried conversations. We can choose a few genuine connections instead of constantly trying to keep up with everyone. Modern life will always ask us to move faster. Growing older has taught me that peace often begins when we politely refuse. Number 5. Solitude isn't loneliness. For most of my life, I believed that being alone was something to avoid. An empty house seemed sad. A quiet weekend felt like evidence that something was missing. If I went too long without seeing anyone, I worried that other people might think I had become isolated or forgotten. But as I grew older, I began to understand that loneliness and solitude are not the same experience. Loneliness is the painful feeling that no one truly sees you, understands you, or cares whether you are there. And strangely, loneliness can appear even in a crowded room. You can sit at a table surrounded by conversation and still feel completely separate from everyone around you. Solitude is different. Solitude is choosing to spend time with yourself without feeling that you must escape from the silence. I discovered this slowly after retirement. For the first few months, I tried to keep every day busy. I accepted invitations, created unnecessary errands, and left the television playing simply to fill the house with noise. Then one morning, a storm changed my plans. I could not go out, no one was coming over, and there was nothing urgent that needed to be done. At first, the silence made me uncomfortable. But after breakfast, I sat near the window and watched the rain gather on the leaves outside. I noticed the sound of water against the roof, the warmth of the cup in my hands, and the slow movement of the clouds. Nothing important happened that morning, yet when the rain finally stopped, I felt calmer than I had in weeks. That was when I began to see time alone differently, without other people's voices surrounding me. I could finally hear my own thoughts clearly. I could look back on difficult experiences without needing to explain them to anyone. I could recognize what still hurt, what I had already survived, and what I was finally ready to release. Solitude gave me space to heal. It also taught me gratitude. When life becomes quiet, small things become easier to notice. Sunlight moving across the floor, a familiar song, the smell of food cooking, or a bird returning to the same branch each morning. These moments may seem ordinary, but together they create a life. Spending time alone also helped me understand myself beyond the roles I had carried for decades. I had been a worker, a parent, a partner, a friend, and the person others called when something needed to be done. But who was I when no one needed anything from me? That question was uncomfortable at first. Eventually, it became freeing. I began reading subjects that interested me, walking without choosing a destination, cooking meals simply because I enjoyed them, and sitting outdoors without feeling that every minute needed to be productive. None of this means I want to withdraw from society. Healthy solitude does not mean refusing every invitation, avoiding family, or cutting yourself off from support. We still need sincere conversation, affection, and a sense of belonging. The difference is that I no longer use other people's presence to run away from myself. Now, I can enjoy lunch with someone I care about, and also enjoy eating alone the next day. I can appreciate a family gathering without needing my calendar to remain full. I can miss someone without believing that my own company is empty. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can create peace for yourself. Sometimes happiness is not loud. It does not always arrive through celebrations, busy rooms, or constant conversation. Sometimes, happiness is a chair near an open window, a slow walk beneath the trees, or an afternoon with nowhere else you need to be. Being alone is not always a sign that life has become smaller. Sometimes, it is the moment you finally discover how rich your inner life has always been. Why I avoid people. When I say that I avoid people now, some assume I have become bitter or antisocial, but that is not the real reason. For most of my life, I was the person who always showed up. If someone needed a ride, I changed my plans. If a relative had a problem, I listened for hours. If a friend asked for help, I rarely stopped to ask whether I had the time or energy. I believed that being good meant being available, so I answered calls when I was tired, attended gatherings when I needed rest, and accepted responsibilities that were never truly mine. I kept giving because I wanted people to feel supported, and because saying no made me feel guilty. Some people appreciated that kindness. Others simply became used to it. They called when they needed something, but disappeared when life was going well. They expected me to listen to the same complaints repeatedly, yet showed little interest in anything I was facing. The more I gave, the more they assumed I would always give more. For years, I ignored the exhaustion, but after certain visits, I felt tense for the rest of the day. After some phone calls, I needed hours to recover. Even a peaceful morning could be ruined by one person bringing criticism, gossip, or endless drama into my home. Eventually, I realized I was not losing my peace by accident. I was giving it away. That was when I began avoiding certain people. Not everyone, and not out of cruelty. I simply stopped making room for those who brought constant negativity, expected endless support, or treated my kindness like a duty. I became more careful with invitations. I stopped attending gatherings where I knew I would leave drained. I no longer answered every call immediately, and I stopped explaining every refusal as though protecting my time required permission. At first, some people were offended. The ones who respected me adjusted. The ones who only valued what I provided became distant. That difference told me everything I needed to know. My life became quieter, but it also became lighter. I still help the people I love. I still listen when someone is genuinely struggling. But I no longer believe love requires constant sacrifice. Now I keep only a few relationships that feel deep and honest. These are people with whom I can speak openly, share silence, laugh without pretending, and ask for help without feeling ashamed. We do not demand constant access to one another. We simply know the care is mutual. Avoiding people does not mean I have stopped caring. It means I have learned that not everyone deserves a permanent place in my inner life. Protecting your peace may disappoint someone who benefited from your lack of boundaries. That does not make the boundary wrong. Sometimes stepping away is not rejection. Sometimes it is recovery. And sometimes avoiding certain people is one of the clearest ways you can finally begin loving yourself. Is this a shared experience? For a while, I wondered whether something was wrong with me. Why did I no longer enjoy crowded gatherings the way I once had? Why did I feel less interested in keeping every friendship alive? Why did a quiet afternoon at home sometimes feel more satisfying than an evening surrounded by people? I thought perhaps I had become too withdrawn, but the more I spoke with others my age, the more I realized that this experience is far more common than many people admit. One friend told me she had stopped attending a monthly gathering because the conversations had become filled with criticism and competition. Another said he no longer wanted to spend his weekends with people who only contacted him when they needed help. They were not angry. They had simply become more selective. As we grow older, we often stop choosing relationships based on habit, social pressure, or how long we have known someone. We begin choosing them based on how they affect our peace. That is not selfishness. Selfishness is ignoring other people's needs while expecting them to meet all of yours. Maturity is recognizing that your own emotional well-being matters too. After decades of responsibilities, many older adults finally understand that they do not need to explain every decision. They can decline an invitation without inventing an excuse. They can step away from endless drama. They can choose a few sincere companions instead of maintaining dozens of shallow connections. Perhaps you have noticed the same change in yourself. Maybe you enjoy smaller gatherings now. Maybe you need more time to recover after social events. Or perhaps you have quietly released relationships that no longer feel respectful or genuine. None of this means you have failed at friendship. It may simply mean you have learned what kind of connection truly deserves your remaining time and energy. It can be the beginning of a different way of living. One with less pressure, fewer performances, and more attention to what truly matters. This chapter does not need to be crowded to be meaningful. It can be built around simple mornings, honest relationships, familiar places, and the freedom to move at your own pace. There is still so much to appreciate. A warm meal, a quiet walk, a conversation with someone who understands you, the chance to learn something new, even if it is only a recipe, a skill, or a different way of seeing an old problem. Growing older does not mean curiosity must disappear. We can still read, explore, ask questions, change our opinions, and discover parts of ourselves that daily responsibilities once left hidden. The greatest freedom may come from releasing the pressure to live according to other people's expectations. You no longer need to prove that your life is busy, impressive, or exciting. You can choose what feels honest. You can rest without guilt, say no without shame, and enjoy small moments without needing anyone else to approve of them. Life may become simpler, but simpler does not mean emptier. Sometimes simplicity creates the space where gratitude finally has room to grow. So embrace this chapter as it is, not as a weaker version of the past, but as an opportunity to live with greater clarity. If today's message resonated with you, remember this: it is never too late to choose a quieter, healthier, and more meaningful life. You don't have to spend your remaining years trying to please everyone. You deserve relationships that bring kindness, trust, and comfort, and you deserve the peace that comes from being true to yourself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you found yourself becoming more selective about the people you spend time with as you've gotten older? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may encourage someone else who feels the same way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need these words today, and subscribe for more reflections on aging with wisdom, health, and purpose. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next video.